So I feel like a lot of this racism also is like a product of the people who fund them, right? The racism in our country. Just look at our disgusting history. Like all our presidents have been racist. That Margaret Kimberly wrote a book about that. But the rhetoric we were hearing from the mainstream news and even a lot of independent left news and from Bernie Sanders, Trump is the most corrupt, most racist president of all time. Is this true? I mean, if you look at the thumbnail, I have there Franklin Pierce. We had a bunch of slave owners. This is something
Mhm.
that Marcus was talking about on his show, but I'd like to get the thoughts of Sabrina and RJ. And then Marcus, what are you guys' thoughts about that?
It's interesting because I think Trump wasn't any more racist than other presidents that we've had. I think the difference was he was saying the quiet part out loud. He was so bold about it, whereas they, would say those things too, but they would say it more discreetly. So, for example, if you think about Ronald Reagan, for example, Ronald Reagan was also racist. He was the one who coined the term welfare queen. And everybody knew who he was referring to, like when he said that. Now, if Trump would have said it, he probably would have just said, black women. But they use these, different phrases and terms to hide it a little bit better. But for black people, I mean, we knew. So when I heard people say, well, Trump's, I'm a Republican and Trump's horrible, and I want to go back to the days of Reagan. I'm a Reagan Republican. Well, you're not really any better because Reagan was just as racist. And then there was tapes released, I think it was about a year ago, where Reagan was calling black people animals and all of that stuff. So it just, even when people mention FDR, and this was one of the things I think for Bernie, when Bernie created that sticker where it was supposed to be like symbolic of like FDR and his face was on it and all that kind of stuff. That was another thing I felt like some platform slipped on. They kept talking about Bernie's going to be like FDR, and the New Deal, but they would never mention that the New Deal left out black people. And this is why you need people like us in this space, because we mentioned that, we call that out. I mean, like RJ's brought that up, like other people have brought that up that have come onto my show as well. So it just none of them were really like trying to like actively like help black people per se. People might say, oh, well, Kennedy was. I live in Massachusetts. I can tell you a long story about the Kennedys. That's a whole nother show. But even they're not as they're liberal. And I have my feelings about liberals, especially in the Northeast. They're still racist. They're covertly racist. You want to see it? Be a black person and move into one of their neighborhoods. That's my rant on that. Sorry.
Don't be sorry about that. Don't be sorry about that. RJ, we know that Bernie was a really strong supporter of reparations, right?
Yeah, I mean, to get back to really what you were saying about all this for your original question, um, yeah, I think it's pretty concerning about really what's going on with that. I think Sab's made some good points too, really about FDR leaving out, and of course, like the New Deal and stuff was great for the white working class and for white farmers, and black people were left out. I mean, it wouldn't have passed if it did. I mean, the entire South controlled Congress. I mean, they all of them were the leadership in terms of all the committees, the Ways and Means Committee, the Financial Services Committee. That's how these Dixiecrats got their power. So FDR knew, hey, if I just make sure white working class people and the white middle class get off well, and sorry, black folks, and his wife was pretty progressive. Eleanor Roosevelt tried, and when Eleanor Roosevelt went to his own husband, who was the president, said, "Hey, let's do civil rights," he's silent, mute. I'll let you tour across the country, but I ain't doing jack shit for black people. So that's pretty problematic. And in terms of Trump, people thinking Trump being the most racist of all time, he's pretty racist in terms of rhetoric. And the reason why we know all the crazy stuff Trump is doing is because the media is up his ass every day. So if he did do something racist, we all fucking know about it. So and that's the kind of thing. So, and it seems like under Joe Biden, instead of the media covering it as aggressively and going into every detail and going hour by hour, show by show, talking about the same shit, under Biden, they bullshit you about how it's not as bad as Trump, or we're misinterpreting the information, or that our eyes are lying to us about the racism of Joe Biden. So that's what's even crazy about that as well. And also this notion. So, and the mainstream media went from Biden being like FDR to, well, maybe he could be like Lyndon Johnson. It's like, yeah, people really don't understand. Like Lyndon Johnson, yes, he was a Southern Dixiecrat. Like he was friends with all of them. He was also a New Deal Democrat. So not only was he a Dixiecrat, but he was a New Deal Democrat. Two extremely problematic things for Black people. So that's another thing. But at least when Lyndon Johnson was smart enough to know, hey, if I give Black people civil rights, who are they going to vote for when they have voting power? The Democrats. That's why he racistly said, hey, I'll have those Black people, and I'm cleaning it up because we're on YouTube. I'll have those Black people voting Democrat for the next 200 years. We're 64 years and counting at least. So that was pretty racist. So about Trump being like the most racist president, I kind of highly doubt it. We have some pretty big people who are presidents who kind of take the cake with that. The ones who actually own slaves. So yeah, that's my take on that.
No, I'm like, it's funny to me anytime I hear anybody, it's especially for Biden to say that, or for Bernie or anybody to make that claim. I mean, think about it. We literally had presidents who were responsible for the Louisiana Purchase, stealing a whole chunk of native land right there. Then think about, the Alamo in Texas. That's stealing a whole another chunk of land. How racist is that? You've already came over, stolen land from the Native Americans, killed over 100 million of them. Conservatively, there could be far more than that. With smallpox blankets. So for those white people out there who like to play this pride thing, no, it wasn't some kind of advanced military strategy. You just gave them smallpox blankets. That's what you did. You sneak attack somebody, biological, chemically weaponized blankets. That's how you took the land in the first place. And then you bring people over here for slavery on top of that. And then you go and steal more people's land. I mean, I don't even know how that mentality goes on. And then we look at president after president after president stealing chunk and chunk and chunk land. I mean, the westward expansion, the purpose for the westward expansion is when they found out about silver and gold, which started the gold rush. That's which started them digging deeper into Mexico in the first place. Now, they got cut off there at that part of Texas, but they were much deeper in there trying to steal the gold all the way down, from Montezuma's area. I mean, off the coast of Florida, how many pirate ships, or so-called pirate ships, that sunk because of all the gold that they were stealing out? I mean, there were ships and ships and ships that sank. I mean, the Spanish lost a third of their fleet. That's how much gold they were stealing. And so you watch what was going on and what was allowed under presidents and what was cool, and the Monroe Doctrine saying, you know what, even though we don't even have a military, this is how arrogant the United States was. We don't even have a military, but everything that's beneath us, the Americas, is all our territory. Don't you come over here. You can't even do business with them. That's what America is done. I mean, president after president after president. I mean, Japanese internment camps. That's something we did on American soil. What is it? Why can't I remember it? The schools, which they used to have, the boarding schools, where they used to force Native Americans to these schools. And the motto in these schools was, kill the Indian, save the man. That's the kind of stuff which president after president after president after president. I mean, we literally had a president which showed the KKK film, Birth of a Nation, in the White House. We have presidents which commemorated Confederate statues in Arlington. And then people want to talk about Trump. Trump is the typical old racist guy who says racist shit randomly. But these other people have done stuff with their racism. Other presidents have sat through. They've been there as part of the redlining and segregation, and and putting the three strikes laws, and all of a sudden how this all these drugs, which are not indigenous to the area, all of a sudden manufacture into our communities when we don't have the money to bring them there. And then guns and all of these things. You look at all the presidents who they will zone and commission for liquor stores and all these other things, but we can't put up a mark, or we can't zone that to grow fruits and vegetables. You cannot even close to bring a buffoon like Trump doesn't even remember what he says half the damn time. What his presidency was he say some shit which he heard on Fox, which sounded good to him, and then all of his flunkies run around trying to make it look like he's going to get it done or try to get it done. It was just fear mongering. All they did was scare the shit out of most of our parents, and I guess probably in RJ's case, probably grandparents, but scare the shit out of them. And, oh God, we got to get Trump out of here. Oh, I mean, what do you think Trump's going to do? You think Trump is going to round up black people and start doing something? No. Trump is a grifter. That's what he's been his whole entire life. He is grifting. He actually didn't even think his ass was going to win the presidency. I mean, go back and look at when the election. His face was like the biggest oh shit I've ever seen on somebody's face. That dude, if you go and go back and look at stories before this, he was trying to renegotiate at NBC for the next year of Apprentice. And he found out that Gwen Stefani was making far more money than him. And he got furious. And he figured, you know what? I could try to run this presidency thing. And if I'm a failed candidate, they have to pay me more. So this guy didn't even really think. So the fear that people have of Trump and making him like he's so much worse. Trump is no different than most Republicans, honestly.
What you said too about Birth of the Nation being played in the White House, I believe that was Woodrow Wilson back in
Yes,
the
it was.
early 19. He was the president after Theodore Roosevelt, and a weird distinction is that Theodore Roosevelt was one of the first presidents to allow black people to work inside the White House, and then the Woodrow Wilson, when he came president, he kicked him out and banned him. So that's crazy. I wanted to add that.
Well, I was going to add this, RJ. What about why do so many black people have the last name Jefferson? I mean, you start looking at some of these, you're talking about the worst, the most hateful, racist president. Why do black people have some of these same last names like Washington? Why? I mean, a lot of people don't know this. When George Washington had horrible teeth, when his teeth went out, what he did is he took one of his slaves and literally plucked his teeth out and made a set of dentures. I mean, there's certain ones who, when they would whip their slaves, they would take brine and put brine in the cuts to make it sting and burn more. I mean, these people don't have a clue. Anybody that would say Trump is the worst now, we might, if we're to want to talk about rhetoric and maybe modern day era, say what, after the 70s, but every president before that was, I mean, some of them, they might have been good at faking the funk for the people and knowing how to hit all those right notes, just like Kennedy was, just like RFK was. They knew how to sell it the right way. But most of these people were either indifferent to black people or we can go into Lincoln. Lincoln wasn't trying to free the slaves. He's even said it. He was like, well, I just saw that the nation is about to rip apart. And so it kind of walked him into that decision. But that wasn't even his intentions. I mean, we all have to really rethink about these so-called founding fathers.
So I was just going to say Trump is just a product of this racist system. The same thing with what we're seeing with who we put as leaders in all these countries in the global south. Like, it's just products of, the racist system of, capitalism and imperialism, the highest form of capitalism, spreading to all these countries. We want to spread democracy. No, we're spreading our racism from this country over to other countries and exploit and cause suffering to all these people.
Yeah, I actually want to defend what you said, because you said that, okay, maybe in the modern history, the only person who says modern history that Trump is the most racist is Bernie. He's been saying it forever. He goes on this long spiel. Other liberals and those who are Democrats, they're the ones who are extremely hyperbolic. So that's why I feel like maybe you were right on the nail on with that as well. And
Mhm.
also to what Franco said, one of like Chris Hedges quotes, he said that Trump benefited from the corrupt system, but Biden was its mass architect. And I think that
Mhm.
relates too in terms of the racial dynamics in this country. You know, and when and also too, I found it was funny because during the Democratic, not the Democratic primary, but the general election primary, Trump found out that Biden wrote the 90, what supported the 1994 crime bill, and he was beating it. He was beating him for a while on that issue until Biden found the correct talking point. So I think that was something that was pretty concerning too.
94 crime bill, militarizing the
Well,
police. Like it was all
if
there.
if we're
And
talking
he,
about, oh, sorry, go ahead, Sabrina.
oh, I was going to say, and he co-wrote those crime bills with Strom Thurmond. And the interesting thing about
Mhm.
Strom Thurmond, it just goes to show you they're just hypocrites. Because
Yep.
Strom Thurmond, I went to college, University of South Carolina. I saw this man's name on so many different buildings. It drove me crazy because he was a segregationist, just like Joe Biden was. And only one was Republican and one was Democrat, but they were one and the same in that sense. But a lot of people didn't know this, but Strom Thurmond had a black daughter.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Came out a couple years ago, probably about 10 years ago, it came out that she was his daughter and he was still taking care of her financially all her life, made sure she went to the best schools and everything. But that was a secret that Strom Thurmond had a black daughter and he was a segregationist and he was racist as hell. And he co wrote the crime bill with Joe Biden.
And I do want
Don't
to
forget
add,
Senator Byrd.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I
That was
do.
another one of Joe Biden's mentors.
If I agree 100%, I do want to add what you said, Sabrina. Strom Thurmond wasn't just a Republican; he was also a Democrat. The reason why Strom Thurmond left the Democratic Party is after the 1964 Civil Rights Act. Then he flipped. Like that's why Lyndon Johnson he said that motherfucker in the in
Mhm.
his laws in his private speeches because he flipped. And so that's when a lot of the Dixiecrats in the South kind of left Johnson and went towards the Republican Party. So that's what I do wanted to add.
All right.
No, yeah, 100%.
All right. Let's wrap here. Thank you guys so
Oh,
much for this amazing
I guess while we're
conversation.
here,
Yeah,
can I add one thing real quick?
of
I guess
course.
while we're on this topic, for the audience, the video, because I did a video and I went through every single president, and this was before the election, so I kind of got to it. I don't know whether it's going to be Trump or Biden, but I did both. I'm gonna link that in the comments after we finish rapping. So make sure to look for that. I got a couple of videos that tie into some of the stuff we talked about that I want to put in there. I apologize that I'm gonna spam you a bit, but I love you anyway, Franco.
Love you too, brother.